For decades, Wes Hampton the smooth, soaring tenor of the Gaither Vocal Band has brought joy and inspiration to millions of people. He is now more than just a musician. Thanks to his distinctive voice and unwavering dedication to his religion, he is a well-liked figure in gospel music and a silent cornerstone in the lives of those who have followed his path. However, there is a deeper narrative hidden underneath the stage lights and harmonies, a tale about familiar loyalty, a tale of sorrow. Few people have ever heard of this tale of personal struggles, which also contains a controversy that tried his resolve and almost destroyed the very foundation he stood on. This is the narrative of Wes Hampton, who is not only a singer, but also a husband, father, survivor, struggler, and religious guy, a voice with a mission. Although Wes Hampton was born in Memphis, Tennessee, on December 8, 1977, he spent the majority of his childhood in Birmingham, Alabama, a city rich in religious and historical significance. Wes had a natural affinity for music from an early age. When he was only 3 years old, his mother remembers him singing harmonies in the back seat of the car. As a child, he started singing in church and quickly gained recognition for his exceptional vocal range and tone. Wes developed his skills in high school through church activities, local musicals, and chorus. But the ministry was more important than the music alone. He felt from an early age that his voice was a gift that should be given for connection and support, rather than for praise. After attending Nashville's TCA Nazarene University, he earned a psychology degree from the University of Alabama at Birmingham. However, it was evident that speaking truth into tired souls on stage was his actual calling rather than working in a clinical office. Discovering his role in gospel music, Wes Hampton was selected to join the renowned Gaither Vocal Band. Of the most recognizable Southern gospel quartets in history in 2005, his life was irrevocably altered. Wes didn't aim to imitate anyone, yet it wasn't simple to fill the shoes of past tenors. He contributed his unique sound, which swiftly came to define the group's new age. It was genuine, clear, and expressive. Wes became a mainstay in the Gaither Homecoming series, participated in innumerable tours, and contributed to several award-winning records. Gospel lovers all across the world have his interpretations of songs like "I'll Pray for You." Jesus is everywhere, and these are they ingrained in their hearts. However, there is pressure to be famous in the evangelical industry. A man navigating a very human life full of hardships, sacrifices, and a yearning to remain rooted in what really mattered was hidden behind the stage performances and happy. Pictures in the late 1990s, Wes wed Andrea Hampton. The two of them created a life centered on authenticity, family, and faith. Wes finds parenting to be both a blessing and a calling, and the couple had 4 kids. Snapshots of his family life abound on social media, reflecting his genuine priorities rather than being merely for show. By all accounts, Andrea is Wes's solitary confidant. She is renowned for being compassionate, fiercely devoted, and fiercely private, dash-minded. Andrea was frequently at home raising the boys, keeping things normal, and providing prayerful support, while Wes traveled the world singing about Jesus. Wes frequently attributes his humility and ability to handle the rigors of ministry life to his wife. In interviews, he once remarked, "She knows the Wes that the crowd doesn't see. She still loves me." Though every great artist has an unsung hero, a spouse who keeps the house together while everyone else cheers, Andrea Hampton's wife has always been his hero. Wes and Andrea got married in the late 1990s, and their love story started off like many others, full of passion, faith, and lofty goals. However, in contrast to many couples, they would soon face challenges they never anticipated. Andrea is quiet and elegant in public. She stays out of the spotlight and doesn't often participate in interviews, preferring to assist her spouse in the background. She has nevertheless been Wes's anchor in private. Throughout her adult life, Andrea, mother of 4 sons, has largely been responsible for keeping the family together while Wes traveled the nation. Despite their constant emphasis on unity, the couple's marriage wasn't without its ups and downs. They started to feel emotionally exhausted from the stress of continual distance. Andrea frequently felt abandoned to handle everything at home, including discipline, school pickups, doctor's visits, and occasionally even emergencies. While Wes devoted himself to his work, Andrea, who was very strong but very private, was the one who recommended counseling, although they weren't about to get divorced. They were both quietly disintegrating due to their emotional detachment. Counseling was difficult. Shows had to be paused, meant facing hard realities. Andrea said that she occasionally felt invisible, even abandoned. Conversely, Wes harbored regret that he hadn't even fully admitted guilt for missing his children's birthdays, festivals, and the subtle shifts in their personalities. The thing he loved most, his family, was being subtly impacted by the same thing that gave him life, music. They made a commitment to reconstruct. They set limits. Yes. Started to cut back on his vacation days, skip family vacations, and schedule just us time. Andrea reestablished her identity outside of being the wife of a gospel singer by going back to writing and Bible study groups. This was a gradual, occasionally excruciating procedure rather than a quick remedy. However, it was genuine. Their relationship became closer as time went on. Wes also started sharing bits and pieces of their marriage journey in interviews and at small gatherings rather than keeping it a secret. At a gospel marriage seminar, Wes shared a particularly moving statement with the audience. "My wife's honesty, not her preaching, rescued my ministry. She reminded me that if you lose your house while attempting to acquire the world's success, is nothing." Their tale illustrates a reality that many Christian couples encounter, that the strongest relationships can falter under stress, but that recovery is achievable with humility, prayer, and communication in the gospel world. Wes and Andrea's relationship has gained notoriety not for being flawless, but rather for being sincere, dependable, and trustworthy. Following the storm, Wes now publicly acknowledges Andrea as his co-minister in life in addition to his wife, frequently stating that she speaks to uplift him as he sings to uplift others. Wes's music developed a new sensitivity as a result of their private reunion. His public demeanor became more real, his compositions became more intimate, and his vocal performance more emotionally grounded. They now work together to guide younger couples and religious communities through the same highs and lows they experience behind the scenes. Andrea's knowledge has subtly transformed lives even though her voice is not heard on stage. Despite its flaws, their story has great power because it demonstrates that grace, truth, and the courage to fight for it can repair love even when it feels weakened by time, distance, and obligation. Individual misfortune and sorrow linger in the shadows. Few admirers are aware of the extent of the suffering that Wes Hampton has endured. In private, despite the fact that many see him as a happy and devout guy, the Hampton family had a tragic loss in 2012 when Lauren, Wes's younger sister, died suddenly from complications brought on by a rare autoimmune disease. She was just 28. The family was rocked by the loss. When Wes got the call, he was on tour. Years later, he recalled, "I remember falling to my knees in the dressing room. At first, I was unable to cry at all. My soul simply seemed to go mute." Taking a break to spend time with his family, Wes returned to the stage a few weeks later, his voice shaking and his heart heavy. However, he chose to express his sorrow through his music rather than keep it to himself. Psalms like "Glorious Impossible," and "Sometimes It Takes a Mountain" acquired fresh significance for him and his listeners. In a blog post, he disclosed being grieved does not indicate a lack of faith. It's the price of intense love. In the meantime, I sing with her in mind, even though I know I'll see her again. Wes was altered by this catastrophe. He started talking about grieving in the Christian community and became more open about mental health. Wes brought gentle honesty, a willingness to say, "Yes, I love Jesus," to a genre where many shy away from difficult issues. However, he also felt pain, a man drawn in two different directions by the stress of fame. Months away from home were part of the Gaither Vocal Band's full-time travel schedule. Wes enjoyed his fellow singers and the ministry, but he started to feel the effects of being away. His kids were maturing quickly. Andrea frequently had to bear the burden of parenthood by herself. Emotional gaps resulted from the distance, not from neglect, but from reality. Wes acknowledged in a vulnerable 2018 podcast appearance. "I was missing bedtime stories, even though I was doing God's work. I wasn't always at peace, even though I was singing about it. We never held the disputation." A Caritas dispute between Wes Hampton and another gospel performer is the subject of social media speculations in 2019. Wes reportedly walked out of a tour engagement following a backstage argument over song choices, according to the rumors. Some said. Others asserted that their work differed artistically. There was no official verification of any of the assertions. Facebook communities and gospel blogs conjectured for days. The headlines were dramatic. "Is Gaither going to lose Wes Hampton?" one post said. "Conflict in the camp, gospel giant in feud." Another said, "At first Wes said nothing. However, once the story gained traction, he posted a composed, polite comment on Instagram. Stories that aren't totally true are occasionally told. I hold everyone I work with in the highest regard, and although differences may occur occasionally, love and solidarity always prevail." It wasn't a defensive message, it was grown up. However, the encounter was painful. In private, Wes told friends that the most difficult thing was not the unfounded charges, but rather the presumptions that were made without consulting him. He was always a member of the Gaither Vocal Band. His performances appeared even more focused. In the months that followed, not as a defense, but rather as a statement that his mission outweighs everyone else's. New horizons, music and healing. Wes kept recording solo albums such as A Man Like Me and Reality, which combined emotional honesty with motivational lyrics. Through these recordings, he was able to go deeper into subjects such as difficulty, questions, and optimism in the face of uncertainty. In addition to praise and worship, he frequently highlights in interviews that music serves as his therapy. "When I sing," he stated, "I'm not just performing." In addition, he started coaching up-and-coming gospel musicians, giving them tips on how to live a long life, maintain one's spirituality, and remain grounded.
Ow.
Wes believes that leaving a legacy is about being recognized for who you are not. For your accolades, the center of faith, Wes Hampton has remained focused on Christ. Despite all of the highs and lows, he has only ever been present. He has never pretended to be flawless. His message to his fans has always been straightforward. Faith makes life possible, but it doesn't make it easy. Wes Hampton demonstrates a gentle consistency in his faith. Whether he is leading worship in large venues or praying with his sons before bed, it's always genuine, but it's not always ostentatious. At one point, he said, "I want to sing about more than just Jesus in terms of how I lead, listen, love, and forgive. I aspire to live like him." Although Hampton is well known for his voice, his heart is his true talent, a broken heart that has been repaired. A heart that has silently navigated personal tragedy while leading multitudes in worship. A heart that keeps serving from a position of humility rather than from a position of perfection. Wes stands out in a society that frequently prioritizes appearance over morality, not because no one has ever criticized him, not because he has stayed out of trouble, but because he has remained loyal to his core values: faith, family, and the urge to use music to help others. Through it all, his tale is not yet complete. The impact of his journey, the honesty, the elegance, the perseverance will reverberate long after the last note is played. Even though the stage may one day become quiet, Wes Hampton's voice has long been renowned for being strong, clear, hopeful, and warm. However, if you've followed his tale carefully, you start to see that his genuine legacy lies not just in the songs he sings, but also in the life he leads. He performed on some of the most renowned platforms in gospel music. During his career as a performer, Wes has impacted millions of people with his gift. From the Gaither Vocal Band's extensive national tours to small-scale worship gatherings, his voice has evolved into a celebration for the devout, a solace for the wounded, and a silent companion for people who are alone in their cars late at night when worship is playing on the radio. However, his voice's actual power comes from the life it has experienced, not only from vocal training or innate skill. It's the loneliness of hotel rooms, distant from home, the stress of a misinterpreted moment in the spotlight, the loss of a sister, and, most importantly, the sincere, gradual restoration of a marriage that was almost behind the scenes. If you have a platform, however, Wes Hampton's made-up journey serves as a reminder that faith does not negate hardship. Rather, it supports you during it. There is something even more significant than a happy ending in the relationship between Wes and Andrea Hampton. It provides us with a candid look at what it means to really stay in a relationship when the emotions wane, when fatigue creeps in, and when the quiet between two people is more powerful than the cheers of any crowd. There was no spectacular public breakup that caused them to fall apart. Like many couples, they gradually lost themselves in the clamor of ministry and duty. Nevertheless, their tale is lovely because they faced, identified, and decided to rebuild from adversity rather than avoiding it. What may have been the end of their tale was transformed into a new beginning by Andrea's bravery in speaking the truth, and Wes's humility in listening. Their dedication to healing, not only for their marriage, but also for themselves, demonstrates that healthy relationships aren't characterized by pain avoidance. They are the ones who put in the effort to overcome it. Being used by God is a concept that is frequently discussed in the Christian community and for many people. It implies giving speeches in front of large crowds or performing on a stage. But sometimes, sitting across from your spouse and confessing that you're exhausted, lost, and in need of assistance is what it means to be used by God. Ministry doesn't always take place in a sanctuary. It can occur in a counselor's office, at the kitchen table, or on a silent drive where neither person speaks but both understand that the silence is sacred. Additionally, such type of ministry is holy. Furthermore, Wes's story serves as a reminder that praise isn't always given when God offers you a platform. It can occasionally be accompanied by tears. It remains holy nevertheless. Still, it's worthwhile. Wes kept singing despite his personal sorrow. It was required not because it was simple. His religion remained intact despite his anguish over his sister's passing, and made it deeper. He started to view worship as a form of submission as much as joy, as lament as well as delight. By doing this, he gave thousands of people the knowledge that they weren't alone while they grieved their own losses. Integrity is also demonstrated by his quiet strength in the face of the made-up scandal. He might have struck out. He could have attempted to use resentment to defend himself. He opted for grace instead, knowing that character always outlives headlines. He decided to put his faith in time and the truth. Very few people ever witness that. Nevertheless, a person's response, rather than what occurred to them, is frequently the most significant aspect of their tale. In addition to singing, Wes is still serving, loving, and developing at this stage of his life. His music has changed throughout time. His voice now has a deeper meaning, because it has been molded by fire as much as faith. His advice to others is straightforward. You don't have to be flawless, especially for people in ministry or committed relationships. All you need to do is be there. You don't need to know every response. Even when it's difficult, you must simply show up with love and integrity. Most importantly, you don't have to cover up your wounds, because often your greatest ministry comes from the times when God met you in your weakness rather than your strengths. Although Wes and Andrea's marriage is far from ideal, perhaps that is why it is significant due to the fact that it is real, because it demonstrates that romance isn't the only way that love can appear. It appears to be difficult chats at times, like we're learning how to hear one another, like apologizing even when you're exhausted, like repeatedly picking each other. Despite years of being torn apart, the silent effort they conducted behind closed doors is a kind of testimony the world sorely needs. Even though they may never write a book or embark on a marriage tour, what can we learn from the narrative of Wes Hampton then? We remove the fact that greatness is determined by how well you love when no one is looking, not by how loudly your audience applauds. We keep in mind that suffering, stress, and disagreements do not render you ineligible. Rather, they define your humanity. We also understand that mending takes time, but it is always possible when grace and humility come together. Every voice you hear on stage has experienced something, as Wes Hampton's life serves as a reminder. Each song tells a tale, And occasionally, the most shattered areas give birth to the most exquisite harmonies. Anyone who has ever suffered in silence, fought for their marriage, lost a loved one, or stood firm in the face of miscommunication will remember the message of this fictitious trip of Anne if it ends here.